Good afternoon, gentlemen. There is a small handicap of having a session just post-lunch, is that audience get a little bit scarce. But I'm sure this has been viewed digitally on all our platforms, and we'll be having enough audience there. Uh, we are, gathered here at a very particular time when country is debating about the grid and which way India's grid should formulate, especially when INDC commitments are there that 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuels will be inducted into our generation capacity. And that would roughly be around 80 to 90% of our total installed capacity. So we are looking for a greener future. As during the pre-lunch discussions, we were discussing with Alok Kumar ji and Bhupendra Bhallaji that for long-term plans, you have to survive on short terms. And there is a short-term requirement. And we are already seeing that certain states, which are crucial to renewables, they are facing curtailments. We're also seeing that government is very proactively dealing with the situation. And they have capitalized the power grid. But still, there has to be some alterations which are needed. And we already have a national electricity policies draft in circulation. So maybe, sir, Alok Kumarji, if I can start with you, since you have dealt with, the grid during your tenure, and that is not far off. Sir, help us in understanding that, in short term, we also need to see that many of the thermal players, they also need to survive. Secondly, we also have to see that renewable energy need to be encouraged because of the certain benefits which we all understand renewable energy has. What sort of grid balance do you see that pertains in short term and medium term so that our integration becomes more smoother?
Thanks a lot. I hope I'm audible. The future of India's power sector lies in renewables. And we are proud and we should celebrate what we have achieved. The type of expansion we have achieved is unprecedented and we should be proud of it. Only thing is that there are certain learnings from this phase at this stage. And we need to sit back, take a stock and reset the ecosystem for better, more orderly and a cost-effective RE integration. One simple example is the incentive which are given in the initial stage of any resource development like solar or wind, they need to be weaned away timely, otherwise they create distortions. What happened is we waived the interstate transmission charges. Consequently, most of the renewable development came into one corner of the country, some Rajasthan and Gujarat pocket. That made the RE development integration very expensive and unbalanced. And the future lies in two things, that we should allow the market to play, remove these distortions. Whatever is the least cost for a state, whether within the state, whether rooftop or from Rajasthan, let it be decided on the economic basis. And similarly, the market price cap and all, they should be need-based, short-timed. So my take is that we should allocate the transmission capacities which has an element of locational price signal. So the generator should get a message what system cost he is bringing onto on the system. That's all. And secondly, at a state level, they should plan it on a comprehensive basis, not generation, transmission, storage, and demand response. All four. All four can lead to a much balanced and much cost-effective and a faster energy transition. I'll stop at it.
Bhupendra Balaji, if I can bring you here, when he's talking about disciplining the renewable energy players and market need to play, do you think that timing is right? Especially when we are also getting into manufacturing pushing in manufacturing, asking many of the players to start manufacturing here. And then you see that when a new tariff is being introduced through grid balancing, then you also see that curtailment issues comes up in Rajasthan. Then you see that grid perhaps may not be ready. This is the scenario which comes to mind. And globally, we are seeing that America has already pulled out of the clean commitments. We are stitching a lot of trade deals with Europe. Perhaps timing is not that right. What is your take on this?
Thank you, Anilesh. Yeah, I feel, we have actually just gained pace, where we wanted to be. A few years ago, we were wondering when we will reach this stage, when we'll be adding 50 gigawatt of energy, RE every year. And now we've reached that. I think the momentum, we've just picked up the momentum. I don't think this is the right time to kind of take a pause and take maybe review what is happening. But I think I totally agree with Mr. Alok Kumar that we need to correct whatever we feel is happening incorrectly on the ground. I mean, grid balancing is important, as you know, as you yourself mentioned, and if you see the numbers, curtailment has been quite heavy in 2025. And in fact, it's not letting go. It's not that it's for just a aberration and therefore, now we can sit and relax. No, it is happening regularly. Curtailment is because of two reasons. One, of course, is the evacuation, lack of evacuation infrastructure, but it's also because of the grid factors. Maybe coal, backing down of coal, or inability to back down the coal to that extent. So, but there is curtailment. So what needs to be done is, on one hand, we should continue. I don't think the let-up on the RE development should happen. We should continue our bidding. We should see how we should continue, developers should start working on those projects. Simultaneously, we need to get our act together on the transmission delays which are happening. I'm not saying they are unreasonable, but the fact is that maybe, in fact, they've not kept pace with the requirement of the RE, growth that is happening. So we need to quickly look at the factors on the ground. We need to work on that. Transmission, maybe we need new projects on the ground. Maybe we need to speeden those up. Green energy corridors, for example, we are finishing, we are on phase 2. Can we bring in a new scheme for, developing the infrastructure? Can we use the existing infrastructure in a better way? CERC, as you know, has come out with the amendment in the GNA regulations on solar hours and non-solar hours. Can we use, in fact, we've been talking about it for more than 1.5 years, but we've not really used that capacity. So I think we should look at the alternatives, try to address the structural issues immediately and start plugging them, start planning for much larger capacities, and of course also invest in the grid balancing part. Of course, there are many experts here who will tell you how to, but we need to do all that.
Mr. Ghanshyam Prasad, if I can now bring you in, you have heard, two, differencing, sentiments. When, as a watchdog, when you sit on a decision table, how do you try to balance, the both aspirations from the conventional energy side, grid balancing side, plus, the booming MNRE sector, where, a lot of interest is there, not only from the existing player, but also from the startups. So what is your thought process and how do you see things?
Incidentally, CA is sitting at a place where I have to look everybody. I have to see coal, I have to see gas, I have to see hydro, I have to see renewables, as well as transmission, so everything. Now, how do I balance it? It's a fairly good question that you have asked. And incidentally, it was during Alok sir's time, we brought in the rules which now mandates everybody to do the resource adequacy planning. So this particular aspect was really missing, and because of which we had committed errors earlier as well, when we had a huge amount of thermal getting added into the system and some capacity getting stressed and stranded. So that has led us to have a very optimal planning and a dynamic planning. So this is resource adequacy planning is definitely helping us to optimize various resources, whether it is coal or gas or hydro or renewables. And why we have made it dynamic is now every year it is supposed to be revised. Then from the demand side, the DESCOMs, which is supposed to purchase this, they also must have their own power purchase portfolio. They must have their resource adequacy plan ready for the next 10 years. So both ways, both sides, it is being seen and it is being talked about. Second question comes is, how do I ensure the transmission? Transmission, again, the similar thing has started. And not only we have confined ourselves to the major transmission line of interstate, but also intrastate transmission lines are also being planned, and they are also seen that there is a seamless integration of renewables coming from the generator side till the boundary of the distribution utilities. Now, the next question that comes is, you have said that there are curtailments that is happening into the systems. I would like to give you a clear picture here about the curtailment part of it. Right now, we have more than 250 gigawatt of renewables into the systems, which has been integrated. Curtailment as of date, as on this particular date, is just 8 gigawatt. Out of this 8 gigawatt also, 3 gigawatt is such RE whose commitment was somewhere later, but they have come earlier. So at least it's not a failure of transmission for which they are being curtailed, but they are being curtailed because they have got commissioned earlier and their commitment is later. Rest 5 gigawatt, definitely we do know that they are getting delayed because of the transmission lines. And these lines are also getting commissioned. Some will get commissioned by March. We'll be able to release around 3 gigawatt there. And by June, I think we should be able to clear all these things. So out of 250 gigawatt, this meager value probably does not have much of share wherein these things is happening. I can do understand that, okay, the developer who is getting affected to this, he has some nuances to this. But to take care of this, earlier we were really very aggressive with the timelines of transmission. And we were trying to see that can we make these transmission lines in 18 months or 24 months? Visionia is sitting here, and I think we have also given them some timelines of 18 months. Probably they are also not able to complete that. So now we are going to take a very pragmatic decisions that give a reasonable timelines to the transmission developers as well. And same visibility also must be made to the RE developers so that both of them are aligned to each other. And it should not so happen that the RE makes an investment earlier and their investment gets stressed for 1 year or 2 years and it doesn't get aligned to the transmission. So we are going to have some kind of extended timelines, and these extended timelines could be of anywhere between 30 months to 36 months, so that at least there is a reasonability in development of these projects. Third thing what we have also tried to do here is that we have started having a monthly meetings with all the RE developers and the transmission developers, so that there is a clear-cut visibility of both of them taking together and both of them let them align, because there are chances that some transmission line get further delayed, or somebody who is likely to come early from the renewable side as well. So if the TSPs can adjust or in either side of it, probably that visibility must be made to both of them. So these things have started happening, and we are now putting it onto the website so that it is known to everybody that where we are, how we are moving, and in what time frame we are going to come. So probably this is going to help the systems.
So Mr. Kesari, if you can come in here, most of your members are cribbing that, they are forced to generate at much lower capacity as much as they would have liked to. And new electricity policy is also talking about a 40% floor value. But many of us know that this may be not floor value, but ceiling value. And they eventually will have to back down, and especially when this battery energy storage system comes in, reliability on thermal will always be going down. How do you see, this balancing conversation happening, and what sort of things you are looking for your members there?
Thank Thank you, Nilesh. Thank you, Nilesh. Mr. Ghanshyam Prasad made a excellent point that they are considering increasing the timeline for transmission project TBCB projects. That's absolutely need of the hour because transmission take longer time than RE installation. See, the curtailment, some amount of curtailment will always be there and we must accept that as a matter of business model. Grid security is paramount. No one can disk the grid. Those who are coming earlier than the plan, so they can't complain. And curtailment is not happening only on RE side. All thermal plants operated at 55% and below 55% also on those days of curtailment. So they are also complaining that their plant is designed for 80-85%. They have a PPA and contractual commitment of full load, but they are made to. But at the same time, they also can't complain because if the grid requires, they have to back down on those days. That's why CA has come up with suggestion of flexible operation. That's a good. One has to see RE has to be integrated. RE has to be integrated and another 250 gigawatt coming. So we have to plan transmission in a big way, in a realistic timeline. And for flexibility or for grid security, only thermal generators cannot be burdened. Everyone has to take the burden. Someone takes more, someone takes less. And power sector may, see, this is a settled principle that those who have long-term PPA or long-term GNA, they get scheduled first. So temporary, I heard few people making this noise that temporary GNA holder are facing curtailment up to 100%. So they will face because you can't ask GNA holder to back down to schedule your power. So for flexible operation and for grid security, everyone has to play a role and everyone should be ready to share the burden. And इस यज्ञ में आहुति सबको देनी पड़ेगी और renewable वालों को भी देनी पड़ेगी. Thank you.
Arunji, if I can now come to you and take his analogy of Yag mein Ahuti. You know, we were expecting that because of this curtailment, there could be a sentiment that government may decide to have more transmission players. But certainly yesterday we saw cabinet, recapitalizing power grid. That seems to indicate that not in short term, government is relying on, getting more share for private players. What sort of innovation and what sort of new solutions, private players can bring to table, which power grid or, the other conventional transmission lines can't bring? So what is the private sector's thinking on this?
Thank you, Anilesh, and fantastic comments from the panelists, honorable panelists. I think as a developer, there are OEMs, EPCs, the funds and the banks, sitting on us. And we would want to see a constant pipeline of projects. There's the limited ask. What can we bring in? I think there's a very interesting point which came up, timelines. Renewable comes faster than line. But not much has happened on the execution side in the transmission also. We as a country still consume about 1,500 man-days doing a kilometer of transmission line. Internationally would be much, much lower. It will be less than 500. So one is a lot more mechanization has to happen. Lot more mechanization has to happen. We don't use any cranes. We don't, do lots of precast on this, which Mantris have also mentioned a couple of. So I think that's very, very important. Second is, I think there's another thing that I need to mention here is the electrical momentum on the generating side is very, very crucial. With solar, the momentum is not there, the inertia that we call. And it would be very apt, and Ghanshyamji has been, and Alok Kumar Sahab has been pushing for pumped hydro as well. what I feel is pumped hydro is still not picking up the space which it should pick it up. And pumped hydro has to be co-located with the nuclear plants. That's what I feel, because having worked in nuclear plants, it's apt that we combine both, the way synergies come from a solar plus wind co-located plant. I think similar synergies will have to come from a pumped hydro and a nuclear plant. It's doable. I think we can have a small group which can work on these, make the guidelines so that both pick up really, really fast. That's so important. Because there are synergies in the power plant, in the LNG and power plant. I think those similar in the combined cycle plants and the LNGs, there's a beautiful synergy. I think the similar synergies can be picked up to create this extra inertia in the grid. I think that's very, very important. On transmission, I think the government has done a fantastic job. There's absolutely no doubt about it. A clear visibility in terms of, if we can have 2 HVDCs per year for next 10 years, because we are looking at 1800 gigawatt by 2047. So looking at that, if we can have that certainty that every year 2 HVDCs will be rolled out, let's the country prepare for it, this will really work well. Maybe there could be initial excess capacities. We are getting up all the dedicated freight corridors and high-speed rails. They are made with long-term vision for serving the country for many, maybe 5 decades. So on similar lines, if we can look at HVDC in a different fashion, the projects are already listed. I think CA has already done a fantastic job in listing all those. If that can be planned out, it will be really well. And last point which I want to mention is on the DISCOM. I think there's a lot of effort happening on the DISCOM. And as private press, we would want to see, and it's government policy as well, to bring overhead into an underground network, 132, 66, all the way up to 11 and 415. Can we bring in TBCB for undergrounding cabling network in the DISCOM on availability-based tariff, so that this carriage and content can automatically, through the TBCB process, will get separated? I think those are my 3 observations from a private player, and it will bring in a lot of certainty to the sector as well.
Certainly, Mr. Prasad, if you want to reply. And one question which I also want to add is that, in next 5 years, we are expecting country's battery energy storage capacity to increase at least by, 25 to 30 times. That will change the dynamics for the, for the grid stability factors. How do you try to balance the things which Arun Sharma ji has already spoken, and the battery energy storage system which is coming up?
Yeah, two, 3 points. One is regarding the hydro pump storage. We have already come out with a roadmap to 100 gigawatt of hydro pump storage. I think it is already, the report has already been released. And by 2035, that means in next 10 years, additional 100 gigawatt of hydro pump storage is to be commissioned. My requirement by 2035 for the energy storage system is going to be roughly around 160 gigawatt. We wanted to have more of PSP because of its inherent advantage. But seeing the particular pace and the intent, probably we have restricted ourselves to 100, but it might exceed 100 as well, as per the interest being shown by the private developers as of now. This year, we have already commissioned 2 major projects. One is Tehri, 1,000 megawatt, and Pinnapuram of 1,680 megawatt. Next year, 3,000 megawatt is already planned to be commissioned, and they are all on time. After that, you will find 6,000 megawatt, 13,000 megawatt, 20,000 megawatt coming per year, and that has already been have been listed in that particular report, wherein even the transmission, how it is going to be evacuated, that has also been made very clear. Third thing that comes here is we say about the transmission readiness. This year, in just 10 months, we have integrated 40,000 megawatt of renewables into the systems. So without transmission being ready, probably it would not have been possible. And we are again looking for another 10 to 15,000 megawatt in the next 2 months. So this year, probably it is going to be highest, could be somewhere around 50 or 55 gigawatt of renewables itself will be getting and integrated into the systems. How it is happening? What measures we took in transmission to get it expedited? You will find some of the monopoles getting integrated into the systems. And that decision we have taken consciously. GIS, again, conscious decisions. HVDC, what he mentioned, is again a very conscious decision. We have the pipelines ready. Even some of the manufacturing capacity in the transmission line which we were lacking, those have been augmented, particularly transformers, reactors. These were the two big bottlenecks. Their system, their capacity is getting augmented. Even in case of HVDC, IGBT itself is going to be manufactured in India. L&T and Power Grid have already joined hand to do that particular project. So there are so many things that is happening in this particular segment, and technological interventions as well as the main key issue of right of way, that has also been addressed through the new guidelines that has been published by Ministry of Power, wherein now we have said that nothing doing. If there is a land which is required, we can pay them at a market value. Probably that was a big bone of contention when you really go and try to acquire the land or even to do the right of use in that particular corridor. So we have already agreed for a market value. So probably all these interventions are adding to these capacities. So in terms of the, whatever is the balance left out after the PSP, we'll be definitely catching up with BESS. And in terms of battery energy storage systems also, 43,000 megawatt hour worth of this have, VGF has already been announced by Ministry of Power. All of them are under bidding stage, and they are likely to fructify in another 1 to 2 years. Similarly, if required, we will go for next one as well. Another very, very important things what we are deliberating as of now is, can we mandate certain percentage of storage with renewables themselves, maybe around 10%, 15% or 20%, so that it takes care of their variability right at the place where it is getting generated, and they also get compensated with respect, or they are able to meet the requirement of deviation settlement, which is a very, very key concerns of all the RE developers right at the place where they are getting generated. So this kind of things probably is likely to help us in a
Thank you, Mr. Prasad. Alok Kumar ji, during your regime, you had recommended roughly around 80 gigawatt of new thermal capacity, which country had required. But suddenly we are seeing that demand is not picking up at the pace in last few years, as we all would have liked. Do you still stick to your assessment that 80 gigawatt is needed?
I'll say the capacity expansion planning has to be done keeping a 10-year horizon in view, not a temporary dip in demand for 6 months or for one month in a year. So I still of the view that the India will see a very robust, very healthy growth in electricity demand, and India should continue to plan for all possible scenarios of demand to meet it reliably. And you cannot keep on changing your planning scenario every 6 months. So that is my take, and whatever it requires, 80 gigawatt, 90 gigawatt coal, it has to be planned in advance because you can't bring it in just 6 months or 1 year. So I still hold the view that India will see robust demand growth. One last thing is that we should not plan that what is the demand met. We should plan for what is resource adequacy for various scenarios of demand to keep the reliability in a feasible, say, band of, in a feasible band. I'll stop at it. Thank you.
I'll just add one point here, because right now it's not a challenge to meet the peak demand, which is now occurring during the day hours because you have a solar contribution there. The challenge is lying in the non-solar hours. And there you don't have, you have zero contribution coming from the solar side. So what resources that you have?
So
and that lies the answer of Alok Kumar sir and what the question that you have asked.
So then storage would come into play. Then wind can come into play.
Storage you will have
can come into play.
See, solar hours is 6 hours.
Yeah.
What is the left out? Is 18 hours. How do you really meet the requirement of 18 hours? Which storage capacity is going to give you a continuous 18-hour supply?
But if you have storage and planning for storage,
And what is going to be the cost of it? Somebody really asked me, if solar is really so cheap, why isn't the price of electricity coming down?
It's a cost is play of scale also, no? That once the scale comes into play.
No, because the real cost of solar is something different than what is being projected into the systems.
I think you have to see the likely utilization of the asset. Can't create a storage which is utilized 40%. Who will pay the balance cost? It has to be a very, very planned manner for a lease cost is still ramping up renewable energy. We should not go by ideology. We need 2 HVDC per line or we need 90 gigawatt coal. No. Whatever system requires for meeting it reliably demand in most likely scenario, we should go for that.
So Balaji, I want you to come in. You have dealt with, renewable energy players. When such questions tossed up to you, so what was your reaction at that time?
No, as far as I'm also a student of economics. So yes, we should look at the overall cost of every resource. Why only solar? I think every resource we should look at the cost. But the fact is that world over, now it's a question whether we want to go slow or we want to balance it now and then, and then expand later. 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, 2070, when we reach net zero, our path is very clear and the world's path is very clear. So the earlier we grapple with the problems and resolve them is better. So therefore, I think what we need to do is, as Mr. Ghanshyam Prasad is saying, this year we have a record year for RE projects coming online and of course simultaneously integration. I compliment him for that, absolutely. We will probably cross 50 gigawatt of RE this year. We have 2 months of data left. Next year could be even higher. I'm saying could be, but I'm very happy to hear that it will be. So we are on that path. So we are not rolling it back. And the question is, we need to look at, of course, non-solar hours, how we are going to meet the energy need. We are one, I think, policy is very clear, India's policy, that we cannot have blackouts. And we have to meet the entire demand of the country, every part of the country. So whatever need be has to be done. If thermal needs to be added, if PSPs need to be added in the number that Mr. Prasad talked about, which is a higher number than what was earlier, which is very good because more storage capacity, and in fact, for non-solar hours, you may need to add non-RE in whatever way. Now, whichever way, how much of storage, maybe the technology will improve in the next 5 years so much that it will match the thermal capacities. The battery itself would be, or other storage could match the thermal capacities required equivalent one. So, we have to go that path to know what will happen. But I think we need to plan for all that.
And so in winter session, we have already seen that Shanti bill was, cleared. And we may see some private players coming into setting up nuclear plants, and especially the SMRs. So that could be, the cleaner fuel, fueling our electricity. Mr. Kesri, in this discussion, the focus is on many of your members that, their survival and return on investment, because they invested into thermal power plants when country actually needed it. And curtailments actually has curtailed their margins. So how do you see them, striving through this era?
See, I've run the DISCOMs also. For DISCOMs, the delivered cost of power is more important, not what you discovered in the bid. So delivered cost of power is very important in making decision. Second is reliability. Reliable supply of power is again very important for economic development, and we can't afford a blackout now in the country. We are at such an economic stage of development that we can't afford. So reliability in supply, because it's only DISCOM who faces the flak, no generator, no one else. So that's why DISCOM are keeping both green power, reliable power, round-the-clock power, and that's why based on their demand projection, and CA has done a beautiful resource adequacy study, and they projected state-wise what are the sources of power and generation mix. And the states have gone for bid, almost 20,000 megawatt of new thermal plant bid has been finalized. Another 8,000 megawatt are either in the market or coming through. NTPC, state GENCO are also adding power. That's for meeting the reliability factor and peak load and non-solar hour power demand. Then CRC cap. I will request CRC and all stakeholders that CRC price cap should go. That will help sending a signal to the market for merchant power, and merchant battery storage will also come in a big way if the cap is removed. And for transmission, constant transmission, supply is also a constant. So one can consider going for a bulk tender of 5 or 10 HVDC line, which will deepen the manufacturing capacity in the country and get you more player and more predictable project execution in the future. And for integrating RE power, the thermal sector and thermal player, especially IPP, are advocating, requesting that the MTL should not go below 55. Maybe for a few days or few times in the year, it can go to 45 or 40%, but on average, it should remain 55%. That will keep them also going. Thank you.
Arunji, if we see globally, the grids with high renewable energy penetration, they see flexibility and technology as, one of the stable constant. As a private player, how do you see the Indian context, especially when we are getting ready for the next phase of renewable inculcation, since the new electricity policy is already in circulation? So how do you see, the role of regulators, watchdogs, and many of the industry associations? What is the private players' view here?
I think as a private player, if my investment is on ground, then I should be able to pay back my lenders and get a return on equity. That's the bare minimum which I need. I think curtailment issue, Ghanshyamji has very clearly explained it too. And the TGNA people are at the bottom of the pyramid when it comes to priority, and they are left high and dry, unable to service their debt. I think there's something we'll have to figure it out. In terms of some of the, I think I can give an example of Denmark, which is 90% on renewable. I think the storage plays a very important role there. And storage alone can solve our problem. It could be a nuclear storage, or it could be a pumped hydro storage, or hydro plants, or coal or gas peaker. I think those will have to play a role. Now, if we can bring in the battery asset under transmission, then the problem which Alok Kumar sir mentioned, this all concentrated in one part of the country, I think that can get distributed. We bring it closer to Khetri or Narela. We can store power here, and then in the peak time we can discharge the batteries. And I think that one thing that can happen. And the private players, power grid, all of us are fully equipped. Land is already acquired. We are present there. Connectivity is there. We can very quickly ramp it up. So building storage, battery storage under transmission could be an option. I think that can be explored. And other thing is, I think physical infrastructure is one, but the way we can expand the capabilities of our grid itself, monitoring and more stabilization efforts like a very quick frequency stabilizer, frequency curtailers. I think if we can bring some sort of those kind of technologies to the grid, I'm sure they're very clever, very wise people running the grid. I think that can, in the short run, can help us reduce the curtailment. But at the end of the day, it is the physical infrastructure which has to come.
So we are running out of time. So maybe we can ask Ghanshyam Prasad ji about this storage. Sir, what is CA's calculations? In next 5 years, how much grid scale storage India requires? Because now we understand that if we comply by INDC commitments, thermal projections are already there. What is the requirement you see that, this much of battery storage capacity India must inculcate so that, grid stability can be ensured by 2030?
See, this is what I said. By 35, we'll be requiring somewhere around 160 or 65 gigawatt, and multiplied by 4 or 5 hours, that will be number of hours that you will be requiring. And how do we meet it? Year-wise plans have already been made. People do keep on saying why India has not so much integrated battery energy storage so far, because we are right now managing with a thermal fleet. And what Kesri ji has said, that we had been definitely hurting them with the flexible operation, coming from up to 55% and then targeting to around 40%. So we did had a good amount of margin here because of 30% of margin which thermal flex, and therein we are integrating the solar and to some extent wind there as well. So far we had been managing, but from 26, 27 onwards, we'll be requiring in a gradual manner, it will keep on growing. And could be, as I mentioned to you, roughly around 60 gigawatt in next 10 years, or 240 gigawatt hour.
And what price?
Price has to be as reasonable as possible, because if this price is not good, definitely hydro pump storage will pick up or some other technology will pick up.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. The time is up, but it was always a pleasure to talk to you all and build this conversation of countries great. Thank you, sir.